week. It was one of those days that I thought it was Tuesday and it turns out it was Wednesday, and yeah, it was just a bad week. So, but hopefully this recipe will make up for it. Hopefully everybody here loves churros. So I'm going to teach you my churro recipe. I'm also going to teach you like how I fry my normal churros, and then we're going to talk about some churro variations. We're going to make churro ice cream sandwiches. We're going to make churro ice cream bowls. Fingers crossed, churros ice cream cones. This is my first time attempting it. I have something, anyway, we'll see if it works. I have 2 different ways to make them that we're going to attempt. And yeah, see how it goes. We're going to use normal piping tips that you can get at home, as well as my cool churro making thing that I bought myself because it makes hollow churros that then we can fill. So I have some lemon curd made, some caramel sauce made, and we're going to make some really quick ganache as well. Talk about dipping and filling churros. So we've got a lot. I'm super excited, and the very first thing we're going to do is make our churro dough. So there's a couple variations of churro doughs out there. A couple recipes, like the one that came with my churro maker, is just flour, salt, and water. Pretty basic dough. But the recipe that I have always used and that I share on my website is the pate choux recipe, which is, or sorry, pate choux. I'm not supposed to say the A. I'm terrible at pronunciation. The pate choux recipe, that's the same exact recipe that you use for cream puffs and eclairs. We made those just a couple months ago. And so that is what we're going to get started with. I'm actually going to make a batch and a half today, simply because we're trying to make so many different things. I want to make sure that I have enough batter. So if it looks a little bit bigger than my recipe calls for on my website or in the comment box on YouTube, that's because it is a little bit bigger. So let's get moving. Oh, and I did it. Okay, we're all plugged in here. What am I seeing? Oh, that's one of my legs. There we go. Sorry. Feeling a little frazzled, kind of getting a late start. Okay. So what we're going to do is put milk and water, sugar, pinch of salt, and some butter in a saucepan, and bring it to a simmer. Oh, I forgot to get on Facebook so I can see comments there. That would be helpful, huh? Ella, welcome. Yes, I am doing good. Joseph, good morning. It's actually afternoon here. My audio is kind of crackly. Man, I don't know what that could be, because my audio on my side is plugged in the way it always is. Crappity crap. Okay. Lovely. Okay. Elena, Rhonda, Brenda, Dan, Brody, welcome. Hello. Okay, butter. Joseph, Jenna, hello. Alright, so I'm opening up my butter. Rose Chan, hello, welcome. Sounds okay. Okay, well, sounds like the audio is okay over on Facebook, and it's a little choppy on YouTube for some reason. So, so frustrating. I already had technical difficulties earlier, and I had to restart my whole thing. And once I push start and go live, though, there's really not a lot I can do. So, fingers crossed, the audio cleans itself up. All right, so we're bringing that to a simmer. I also have some eggs that I have at room temperature that we're going to mix into this batter later, and I have flour, and that's all the ingredients that you want for this dough. All right, so while we're bringing that up to heat, I'm going to make the ganache to set aside. So I have 6 ounces of chocolate right here, and I have 6 ounces of heavy whipping cream, and I always recommend heating up your cream in a pot on the stove if possible, just because you're going to get a nice slow heat, because if you overheat the cream, you'll actually cause some problems in the ganache, and your ganache will separate, and we don't want that. But when it's anything less than a cup, it's like, ugh, what do? Do I microwave it? Do I heat it up on the stove? kind of a toss-up when you get in those, kind of toss-up when you get in those small amounts. Usually half a cup and less, I just microwave and I just watch it really carefully and I stir it every every 20 seconds. But because this is over half a cup, or 3/4 cup, 6 ounces, I'm going to actually heat it on the stove real fast. And it shouldn't take very long at all because it's such a small amount. Okay, so I'm watching my cream, and what you're looking for when you're heating up cream for any kind of ganache is for just a little bit of bubbles around the outside edge. You don't want a full simmer, definitely not a boil. Do not boil the cream, don't simmer the cream. You want it just before it hits that stage. So you're looking along the sides of the pan, see when it starts to just pop a couple small bubbles, and that's when you want to pull it off. That's when it's warm enough. So yeah, all right, let's check on this. All right, Margaret, welcome. You can't wait to try these. I'm so glad. They are really so easy and so delicious. Your husband always says butt hair for butter. What's the name of my Facebook? So is my live showing Facebook? Yeah, yes, I'm live on YouTube and Facebook. My Facebook page is Ashlee Marie Cakes, just my YouTube channel. How was my weekend? Joseph, it was good. My kids were with their dad for the weekend, which means I usually sit around and miss them, but I actually got a lot done. So it was a productive weekend, which is always a good weekend. All right, has the audio gotten any better over on YouTube? Let me know if it has or has not. Okay, so this is melting. The sugar is dissolving. So that's exactly what we're looking for. I'm checking on the whipping cream, and it is heating up. All right. Hold on. I'm playing a little bit with what I can. There's not a lot that I can do. It says that the stream is healthy and the flow is good. So there's not a lot I can make changes to. So let me know over on the YouTube side if the audio is still choppy. I don't know what it would be. I mean, I have a fan on, but it's way over there. The output is the same for both feeds. There's not a lot I can do there, and the audio is the same for both feeds. And the audio settings look correct. So the audio's gotten a little bit better. Okay, that's good, Elizabeth. All right, we'll move on. Again, like I said, once I push start, there's not a lot I can do, and some of it is not always on my end. Some of it's on like YouTube's end or Facebook's end. So it's kind of a crapshoot and luck of the draw often. All right, checking the cream again. All right, and I already have my oil heated up to 375. You can start heating the oil at the same time you start your batter, and it should be heated up by then. Now you have a couple of options for heating your oil. You can just use like a pan on the stove and put in a candy thermometer so you can kind of try to regulate the temperature as good as you can. You can use a deep fryer like what I have, which is great because it regulates its own temperature. And then you could also use a shallow electric skillet. It's about 2 inches deep, and put oil in that. That's usually what I use for churros because it's about this big, so it fits churros really nicely inside it, and I can fry a lot more at once. But because we're going to be attempting churro bowls as well as churros ice cream cones, I went with the deep fryer because the shallow skillet just isn't going to be deep enough for the bowl and the cones. And I guess I could have heated up both, but I did not. I figured I had enough oil heated up. All right, that's something else about oil. Let's talk about the type of oil that you want to use for frying. I recommend vegetable or canola for this. There's a lot of options out there. I don't recommend olive oil, which is what I use for most of my cooking and baking. I'm a real olive oil fan, but I don't recommend it for frying simply because it tastes weird when it gets to high heat. It doesn't, not all olive oils handle high heat well, where vegetable oil and canola oil both do. You could use like a avocado or peanut oil, but that affects the flavor. So there's some things that I don't mind using that for and some things that I don't. So like I said, I stick with vegetable and canola oil. Now I will use oil that I use in my fryers, but I keep my oil separate. If it is fried anything with meat in it, I keep it in one container, and if it is fried meatless stuff, then I keep it in another. So this is my meatless oil that I'm using now. And then every time you use it, some of the oil goes away. So every time oh good, we're simmering. Let's check on our cream before I finish up this stuff. Oh, and this is too. Perfect. Okay. So let's do the ganache really fast. Okay. So this was just starting to get bubbles on the side. So I'm just going to pour that over the chocolate. And with ganache, this is a 1-to-1 ratio of ganache. 1-to-1 ratios are good for drips or dips, which I know is confusing because it sounds the same. Anyway, you want this to sit for 5 minutes, and I'm actually going to put plastic wrap on top because it helps hold the heat in and helps that work a little bit better. The timer on. What that 5 minutes does is that warm cream is going to permeate into all those chocolate pieces as it sits. If you started stirring it right now, it cools as you stir, and the cream is going to cool before it melts the chocolate all the way. If you wait longer than 5 minutes, then the whole thing starts to cool together and you're still going to get chunks. 5 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. You might still get a couple chunks, but it's really your best option. So that's why I recommend not just pouring it over and leaving, but make sure you set that timer because you really want to hit that 5 minutes. So a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 parts chocolate to 1 part cream is really good for truffles. 2-to-1 ratio is what I use for frosting, 2 parts chocolate, 1 part cream. And 1-to-1 ratio, 1 part chocolate, 1 part cream is what I use for drips and dips like we're doing today. Okay, let's move back to our pat choux. So we have our butter, milk, water, salt, and sugar is boiling. So now we're going to add the flour all at once and stir that together. And what we're doing is stirring this until it balls up. And I'm leaving it on the heat, but I've turned the heat to low because we do want to cook the flour. We don't just want to take it off the heat and add the flour. We want the flour to cook a little bit to get rid of that floury taste. We also want to give ourselves time to make sure that there's no like flour chunks, if that makes sense. Sometimes there's a little flour chunk right there. I'm just going to squish it into the dough and break it up. Alright, once it has balled up like this, we're ready to move on to the next stage. So, I'm going to take it off the heat. I'm going to take this away. Okay. Now, there's 2 schools of thought for this next part. What we're going to be doing is mixing in the eggs. Some people take the batter out and put it in a separate bowl and do all the mixing there so that the hot pan doesn't cook the eggs as you add it. Some people don't like to get a second thing dirty, so they do it all in the same pot. I'm more of the let's not get something else dirty and do it in the same pot. Usually I would let this sit for like 3 minutes just to kind of help the whole thing cool down a little bit before I moved on to anything else. So the ganache isn't quite ready to stir. So we're just going to move on with this. So let's look at the texture right now. And you can see that it is pretty, it's really thick and kind of, ooh, hot. What's the word I'm looking for? Kind of not chunky, because it's not chunky. The texture is usually kind of broken. That makes sense. If we take this and pat it down, one, it doesn't even stick to the spoon, but if we could get some to stick, let's see. What the dough does is it rips like that. And what we're looking for is to add enough eggs that, oh, hold on, turn the fan down. Yes, Joey, if you look, there's a link up above. Kind of like mashed potatoes, Dan. That's a really good, that's really a good texture. So what we're looking to do is add the eggs until this gets nice and smooth. And we're going to add the eggs one at a time. And the reasoning for that is that you don't really know how many eggs you're going to add because it's a little bit different every time. All right, we have 30 seconds left with the ganache. I'm actually going to put this aside. We're going to come back to the ganache and then set that aside to cool. And then go back to our dough. So this is perfect because this will give that dough a little bit of time to cool. Okay. Now you can see how those wafers are already starting to be soft and melty. If we had started stirring them right away, they wouldn't be doing that. They would still be really shaped of the wafers. One of the things that you can do is chop your wafers more. That will help them melt better and smoother. Thank you, timer. But I tend to just leave them as wafers. When I leave them as wafers like this, I will oftentimes get just a little bit of chunky issues, but you can either get rid of those with just like 20 seconds in the microwave once this is all stirred together, over a boiling hot water, depending on what you're using, obviously not this bowl, and they should just come right out. So because this one is 1-to-1 part, we shouldn't have that problem today. It should just come right together. It usually takes a couple seconds. At first, as you start stirring, you're like, oh, this is never going to come together, but just give it a little bit of time. I don't usually make a 1-to-1 ratio, so I'm used to it being a little bit thicker than this. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, that looks good. A little bit chunky, but not bad. Alright, I'm going to push this off to the side now. And we're going to get back to our dough. Okay. So we're going to add 1 egg at a time. And you want to get that mixed in completely before you add another egg. Now you'll notice that your dough will start to get a little glossy, and that is what we're going for. We want a nice glossy dough. Make sure that it's completely incorporated before you move on to the next one. So you're going to want to use at least 3 eggs for sure. I've never used less than 3. My average is 4. Sometimes 4.5, sometimes 5. So it does take some arm strength because the dough is a thick dough, but this is really the best way to do it. If you try to use a hand mixer, you want to be careful not to over mix it. So I would just pulse it, but this, you're going to get the best results just by doing it like this. Notice as you're stirring it together, it'll kind of like, not break up, but it'll kind of section itself off as you mix the eggs in. So you can tell that you're ready to add the next egg once it's nice and cohesive again. See how that's all brought together again? And then just keep adding. See what I mean right here? How it's kind of broken up into pieces where the egg has kind of covered it. You can tell it's not done when it looks like this. And you can tell it's not ready for the next egg while it looks like that either. Alright, so it's cohesive again. Time for another egg. Now because I'm doing 1.5 recipes, obviously I'm going to use, typically for a normal recipe I use 4 to 5. I'm going to use at least 6 in this one simply because I'm doing a larger batch. So there it goes. They almost look a little bit boogery, I guess. That's probably a really bad terminology. But yeah. This is the stages of stirring this. What kind of pot are you using? A new brand I just started using at the recommendation of a friend. I actually found them at the... I like them because they're good for filming. They're not super shiny the way my stainless steel ones are. And they're not Teflon, so they don't have coating that comes off the way my Teflon ones do. I've only been using them I've only used them a couple times though, so I'm still deciding if I like them better than other pots or not, but so far they're really good. Hold on. Masterclass. And I got them at Kohl's, funny enough. Made a trip there just for these pans at her recommendation. Dumpling, that's a really good way of putting it. Dan, you're just coming out with all of these amazing, great explanations for my texture of my dough today. Thank you. YouTube's still choppy. You went to Facebook. It sounds great. Thanks for letting me know, Jenna. I appreciate that. Okay. And there we go. So you can see the difference that it's already made from the beginning, right? You can see how much smoother that is, how it's come together. It's still really thick. If I drop it and plop it like that, we're still getting pretty jaggedy lines. So we're going to add another one. So far we have added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would expect this 6th one to be the last one, so we'll see. Like I said, it was pretty close already. Oh, gross. Oh, I just flicked egg everywhere. I'm trying to see if I got any on the camera. I think it's good. Lovely. Yes, it is exactly the same as cream puffs and eclairs, Yvonne. Glenna, welcome. Why adding the eggs to the dough after it's already made? You know what? I have never asked anybody about that. This is just how this dough is made. Always has been. I mean, yeah, we're going to fry it and everything's going to get cooked later. I wouldn't eat it at this stage right now. All right, so you can see how much smoother this dough is already. That last egg just really brought it over. Look at that. Look at that smooth texture now, more like a thick pudding or custard. And when we plop it, we're getting nice points at the end of our plops. You can see right there. Okay, so if I was making cream puffs and eclairs, I would probably add one more egg, honestly. I'd probably add just like an egg white or an egg yolk, half an egg, and see how it went, but maybe up to one more egg. But because what we're doing today is a little bit thicker, like the bowls and the cones are a little bit thicker, I'm going to put some aside right now. I'm going to put some batter in the fridge. Because you can make normal churros right now with this batter being warm, but I want it to cool and thicken up a little bit to make a couple of the other treats that we're doing. So I'm going to put this in the fridge to cool down. And when I do, I put plastic wrap right down on top of the dough so it doesn't develop any kind of skin. I love when plastic wrap sticks to the bowl. Thank you. All right. I have I have this Wilton 1M tip, and I have this Ateco 826 tip. You can see the size difference. This is like the largest of the normal tip size, and this is in the bigger tip section. And we're going to start with these, but then we're also going to be using my Churro Press, and that comes in a couple different sizes as well. It comes with one even smaller than this, so medium, large, and then it comes with this one that has a hollow center. So we're going to try all of these and see what we think. I think I'm going to add another half an egg to this batter that's left. I'm going to add the yolk. Like I said, normally I would have added probably a whole nother egg to that whole batter. It just wasn't quite where I wanted it point-wise. And since we're going to be pressing this through a press, I want this really, there we go, nice. But I did want to take some of the thick stuff out for later. All right. Oh, perfect. So you can see how much better and smoother and thinner our drop points are getting when I do the plop test. All right, that's great. Oops. All right, so I'm going to bring the fryer over. I've always made churros this way, Joy. I have seen some people who just use flour, salt, and water. That is, I prefer this. I feel like it has a richer flavor. Okay. Sorry, it's already hot and full. Woo, hot. Turn it around again and plugged in. All right, fryers like this come with magnetic plugs. So the plug, this is the part that goes into the machine. If you just touch it, it'll get unplugged, and it's a safety thing, but it's super annoying. Okay. Ready to go. So first we'll do the smallest normal tip to show you guys what that looks like. So again, when I'm filling a piping bag, I fold the top down, and that's going to keep these edges clean for later as we refill bags. Okay. So you want to get low to the oil so that you don't cause splatters. So as you can see, this creates a pretty small churro. It is, however, good for things like what's what I'm looking for? My brain. Oh my word, my brain is like shot. ice cream bowls. I like the smaller tip for those. Hey Siri, call Brooklyn speakerphone.
Calling Brooklyn Prisbury. Mobile on speaker.
Okay.
Yeah?
Hey baby girl, can you come up for, I need something.
Okay.
Thank you. Alright, so that is the smaller one. And you can see, if the camera will focus, come on. There we go, that it's not going to be really super, there's not going to give you a lot of inside to this because of how small they are, but it will have a nice crunch. Alright, let's do the bigger one now. So this is the bigger tip. The oil is at $3.75. Alright, so these create bigger churros, but notice because of how open the star is, you almost completely lose the shape of the churro, if that makes sense. Like there's just not really great ridges with the, oh, that we got an air bubble on that one, broke it in half. So this star tip, because it's so open, because these points don't bend in at all, you lose a lot of the shape. Can you give me a tray with paper towels on the bottom and a cooling rack on top? Thanks, baby girl. Where this first one that we did, the points kind of kern in a little bit and they make them more stronger points. Now, as you can see with this disc, those are really, they point in really, really deeply, so that's actually what we're going to try next. I'm going to fill this up with batter. All right. Oop. All right. So I have this filled with batter. We're going to put on the, hold on, clean that a little bit. All right. This is the one that we're going to use first. Brooklyn, did you bring it to me? Baby girl, where is it? Brooklyn, where is it? Lovely. Okay. So that gave it way deeper ridges. Let's do another one. So you can see this one has way better ridges than the other one. And yes, you're right, they still taste the same either way. How often do I reuse the oil? I never like get rid of it. I'm always just adding new oil as it gets low, if that makes sense. Alright, so this shape is much, much, much better than the other one. And like I said, I usually use, hold on. I use and recommend using a shallower pan. I use my electric skillet, it's only about 2 inches tall, and then it's easier to lay the churros right in the oil as you're squeezing them in. Then this is kind of deep and awkward. Again, the only reason I'm using this one is for the ice cream cones to hopefully, fingers crossed, work out in the bowls. So that is what I'm going to stick with. All right. You have a cookie dough press. You can see how it could come out. Yeah, the cookie dough press would probably work good. Is that a genuine corn baller or a knockoff? Seth, I don't know what a corn baller is. Sorry. So I don't know if you're asking about the fryer or the churro maker or what. Brooke Baker, what tip did I use first? You weren't paying attention. The first one was a Wilton 1M, which like I said, I don't love because of how small it is. Okay. Pull this out. Great, thank you. Put it right here. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to I'm going to do the hollow churro tip. We'll use that one next and see how that goes. I actually bought this churro thing like 3 years ago, and haven't actually used them and made churros since my last batch. So funny enough, this is actually my first time using it. So. Oops, that's not going to help. All right, you want to cut your churros if you can, so that they don't come to a point like that. That's obviously not going to help with this being hollow. And for the hollow ones, I would keep them a little shorter. You know what? I am thinking, call me crazy, but I wanted the batter to be looser. That's why I added that final egg, so that it could push through. So it could push through this hollow one. But now I'm thinking it's a little bit runny, and it probably would have been better if I just left it on the thick side of things. Pulling curls, it reminds you of cream puff dough. It's exactly cream puff dough. Of course I have a Churro Press. Of course I do, Hillary. You can see that hollow churro design in there. All right. Next up, let's talk churro ice cream cones, or not ice cream cones, churro ice cream sandwiches. So what I do when I'm trying to put things in a fryer that I need to hold their shape is you want to use a mold of some kind, or you want to press them, or you want to pipe them onto parchment paper. So I have a bunch of squares of parchment paper that we're going to use for this next part. Oh my word. Yep, these, because of how loose the dough is, these don't have a hollow center at all. So we will try it again when we get the thicker batter back out and see how that works. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to push this aside for a second. All right, so I have these parchment squares right here, and I have the smaller tip, and I'm going to pipe them into a swirl like that, like you would a buttercream rosette, and you just slide that parchment all right into the oil. And as it fries, you'll be able to pull that parchment paper right out. What this does is it allows you to have that shape that we're looking for the sandwich. I don't know if any of you guys, when you're at Disneyland, have done the ice cream sandwiches out front at like City Walk. But yeah, this is how you would make those. Because if you try to just pipe into the oil, what happens is, if you try to just take your piping bag and pipe your swirl directly into the oil, it will start to move with you, and it kind of unwinds and opens up, and it doesn't stay stuck together. So by piping it together first and getting that batter touching each other and holding on to each other, you're going to have better results for the outsides of an ice cream sandwich. Hopefully that makes sense. First, the Facebook page sounds good there. Okay. These almost kind of have created a little bowl. Alright, as soon as these come out. Alright, so next up, what we want to do is make the cinnamon and sugar for these to get dipped into. Right? So you want to pick something that's big and wide, so you can put everything in it. This is going to be, for every cup of sugar, I do a tablespoon of cinnamon. That's just the mixture that I like. So I have a cup of sugar and a tablespoon of cinnamon. And you want it to be deep enough that when you put whatever it is that you're putting in here, it doesn't touch the bottom, and wide enough that you can fit your entire churro inside, if that makes sense. Right. Ooh, great. Alright, so here is one of our first churros with our really small tip. And here's the other one. Here's our churro with the bigger tip, but the open star, so we lost all of our shape. And here's the other one of those. Here is our churro maker one, so it has the really deep ridges. And Here is our hollow one. Which is more of like a French star tip, so it has a lot more ridges in it. All right. And now our ice cream sandwiches. All right, so all of those are cinnamon and sugar swirled. Okay, so let's talk the bowls. So I'm going to get out the batter that we put in the fridge that has been allowed, that was already thicker to begin with and has now cooled slightly. And I'm going to go back to the small tip. Like I said, I don't like the small tip for normal churros, but I do like it for a lot of these other options, like the ice cream sandwiches and the what we're doing now. Okay. All right, so I have a muffin tin. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this close, but not in the way. All right, so I have a muffin tin that I'm going to spray with some non-stick spray. And you want to spray it really good. Be generous with this. And let's see. We're going to take this small piping and we're just going to pipe right around the outside edge, letting it fall onto itself. Like that. And I wouldn't do every single one. I would do every other one like this. And we're going to stick this in the freezer. And you want to stick it in the freezer right away. Lovely. Hold on. Okay. So this is one that I made and froze earlier. Now a lot of the videos that you've probably seen online, they show that you can just like take a little spatula and just pop it off, but that didn't work for me, even though they're sprayed. What did work for me was flipping it over and running really warm water right into the bowl. Now we don't want this to get wet, so I keep it tilted and I just run it right in here, and that will just kind of help loosen the whole thing. And I found that just a couple seconds was enough. And then I can come in here, get underneath, and it just pops right up. So, and yes, the inside is a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Shiny. Hold on. Because of that, but it's going to fry just fine. Okay, let's bring our fire back. Ooh. I had a couple others that I had already frozen. And I just try to keep turning them so they don't get stuck in any one place and get too overcooked. The rosettes are well done. Yeah. I let them overcook just a little bit, but they'll still be okay. You could always, for the ice cream sandwiches, you could do the same thing that I did with these ice cream bowls, and that is you can pipe them onto the parchment circles and then freeze them, and that will help them hold their shape as well. If that makes sense. What kind of paper is that? This right here, this was just parchment paper. Just normal parchment paper. Chad, not much, just cooking. Welcome, welcome. Almost done. These are looking good. And then we're going to tuck ice cream cone. All right. Ooh. Oh, I'm trying to be careful and not ruin the great bowl shape that we've got going on as I pull them out. Okay. Okay. Really quickly, I'm going to give the hollow churros another shot. I'm going to take my my Churro Press, and I'm going to put the chilled, thicker batter in and see what I think. So this is the one that had one less egg. And also has been chilled in the fridge. Okay. Let's see if it works a little bit better. I kind of wish I had a third hand for this. So this hand is squeezing the batter out, and I want another hand to like cut it. I wish I could squeeze it with just one hand, but we'll see. Okay, whew, that splattered a little, but I think that actually worked a lot better. So ignore what I said at the very beginning. Don't add that final egg. Keep it one egg shy of cream puff texture, because this is working a lot better. Okay. So I'm going to let those fry, and we're going to talk ice cream cone. So I had a churro ice cream cone when I was visiting Chicago last year, and it was amazing. And I asked them how they cooked it, and they have a fryer that has cone-shaped rotisserie in it, right? So they can just pipe around the cone shape, and then the cone shape just fries and rotates and turns right there in the rotisserie. Well, obviously, I don't have that. I have to have something that can go inside a fryer. So I've actually been thinking about this for a year, since that's when I had it. It was actually last June. It's not quite a year. So I've been thinking about this conundrum. So my first thought was to not do it. But you know me, I'm always going to give things a shot. So my second thought was, okay, how can I pipe it and get it to stay on the cone? But if I piped it while it's fresh and warm and runny, it's just going to slide down the cone shape. So I watched a lot of videos of people who make these kind of cones, and I saw two things. One, people who piped the shape onto the cone and fried it, and people who piped it out, chilled it, and then wrapped the chilled dough around the cone. So I bought these pastry cones about that same time from Amazon, and I thought I will give these a try. But because they have this shape where they go down, they don't stand up. They're always tilting over. So I knew that this wasn't going to work. So what I decided to do was take some foil, fold in half, and I'm going to wrap it just like hold on, pull these out. Just like I wrapped the cone with parchment paper for my chocolate chip cookie ice cream cones, I thought I would wrap this cone shape with the foil. So that's what we're going to do now. Ooh, let's slide this over. Alright, so you put the cone up near the top with a point towards the center, and you just roll. Alright, so then the next thing that I did was I pulled out the metal cone shape, and then I tried to make this flat enough that it would stand, but I just kept crumpling the whole cone. So I decided to leave the cone shape inside, and I just used all that foil to the end, just folded it up so that it would hold itself up upright. So that is what I have tried. Hold on, I'm going to cinnamon and sugar this stuff. Cinnamon and sugar the ice cream bowls. Anytime you get something with beef crevices, you'll get more cinnamon and sugar coverage if you pick up some of the cinnamon and sugar and sprinkle it on top. You want to do this while these are still warm. Oh yeah, that worked out so much better. Okay. Alright, so I got out a tray. And I put parchment paper down. Alright, so this is the one that I piped on earlier. So we can try that and see if that method works. But I also piped out long ribbons of the churro batter to see if the wrapping method would work as well. So we're going to try both of those and see how this goes. So first thing I'm going to do is spray my cone down with a generous helping of non-stick spray. And we're going to try the wrap method first. And I piped two different sizes, big and little. I didn't freeze the dough because I didn't want it to get too hard. I want it to still be pliable. But it's definitely sticking to the parchment paper more than I thought it would. So I don't know that I'm going to love this method, but we'll give it a try. All right. All right, so the negative to this method that I can see so far is that it just simply wasn't long enough to get over the whole cone, and I totally lost all the ridges, if that makes sense. All right, I had a feeling that this method was not going to work, but I wanted to at least give it a shot. And this thicker one, I can't even pick the dough up. Like, it's just ruining itself as I pick it up. So we're going to say that the pipe out and wrap method is a no-go. So next up, we're going to go back to the pipe method. All right, so sprayed another generous helping of onto that cone. Ooh, wrong camera. Let's try this again. Okay. Oops, the oil just came unplugged. Lovely. Okay. So I used the bigger, thicker piping for this first one that I froze, but I felt like it just used a lot of churro. It's like 5 churros in one. So I'm actually going to switch over to the smaller piping one. Let's see how that goes. Alright, so I'm back to the smaller tip. This is the thicker chilled dough. And ooh, I'm also going to spray the base. And I'm just going to start on one side. And again, I'm going to kind of come from above and just let it fall into place. And stick it right in the freezer right away. Alright, so, hold on, I gotta get the oil back on. That's the negative to these stupid. Okay. Alright, so now I have this frozen tree looking thing, and I want it to fry, but I also want the center to fry. So I'm gonna try to unmold it without destroying the shape. Oh, okay, got it out. I'm not sure how the inside is really gonna fry that well, but we shall see. Whoop, that was heavy. That like plonked right to the bottom. So again, for the one that I froze, I used the thicker tip, and then I ran out of my earlier batter. So I couldn't test a small one earlier, but I definitely think the small one is one that I'm going to be happier with the final results. I'm just making sure that it's moving. Sorry, my hands have water on them. Sorry, that's why it's making all that noise. Not the same as wax paper, no. I don't use wax paper very often. I use parchment paper 90% of the time. Wax paper is really only good for a couple things, in my opinion, over parchment paper. Alright, so we have tried closed tip and open tip. We've tried a Churro Press. We've made bowls, sandwich like cookies, filled churros. And as soon as we're done with this ice cream cone, I'm going to call it and we're going to get out the dips and play with some flavor combinations. I'm just going to keep rotating this around. It does not want to flip over. There we go. Nope. Would it work with an air fryer? No. Battered stuff does not work with an air fryer. It'll just, hit the wrong button. Batter in an air fryer will just go and melt all over the bottom. So no, you can't make my deep fried Oreos in an air fryer because they're battered. You can't make any of my deep fried stuff like that. Cookie dough balls, cheesecakes, Oreos, Cadbury cream eggs, Snickers. I'm trying to think of all the stuff that I fried last year when we did that. Pop-Tarts, Twinkies, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, my peaches, my battered and fried peaches with creme anglaise. That doesn't work either. Oh, okay, let's take a look. I think you could do my fried cheesecake chimichangas. Oh, look how good that looks. Because the cheesecake chimichangas are wrapped in a tortilla shell, so I think that they would be okay. Okay, I'm going to put the fryer out of the way. How long do you leave the bowls in the freezer before frying? I just did them a couple hours ago. I'll pull out the one that we just made and show you how thick it already is. So this one that we just put in, 20 minutes ago, is already holding its shape pretty good, and I think I could fry this one now. So yeah. Cool. Okay. I'm gonna heat up my caramel sauce. Alright, so we have the 1-to-1 ganache that we made earlier. And if you want to use Mexican chocolate for this, you can. If you want to add a dash of cinnamon or cayenne pepper to this, you can. I'm into pure chocolate, so I'm not going to do that. But and then I have my caramel sauce heating up, and then I have some lemon curd that I made earlier today as well. Alright. I know I've talked a lot about, oops, sorry, I thought the camera was on me. I've talked a lot about dessert bars. Where is my heating thing? Literally just had it. Alright, because this is warm now. This is one of those things that I think would be really fun to do. There's a local churro place that I really like. It's called San Diablo Churros. They make the hollow churros, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to try making my own. And what they do is they actually have a little squeegee bottle with all of their fillings, and they just squeeze it right into the center of their hollow churros. And my favorite is the lemon curd. My second favorite is the salted caramel. So that is why I made both of those. The lemon curd recipe, ganache recipe, and caramel recipe are all on my site. Or if you're watching on YouTube, they're just right down there in the YouTube comments. All right, I'm going to cinnamon and sugar up the ice cream cone now. Okay, nice. All right, so okay. So anyway, so that is why I picked these to serve my churros with today. So you can just put them in a little bowl and have people dip their churros. You can serve the churros in like little cups and let people, if you have like the hollow ones, and let people squeeze their favorite filling into whatever the churros are. Okay. Oh man, that ganache tastes so good. A little bit of the caramel sauce and some of the lemon curd. And I know when they first told me churros and lemon curd, I was like, that's silly. It sounds ridiculous, but oh my word, it is amazing, I promise. So good. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first one that we made. This one was made with the small tip, and so it's not really churro. They're more, I call these Churro Fries. Oops, I lost my ability to change my camera angle. Hold on. There we go. All right, so it's got a good crunch. It has a good filling on the inside. It's got the best of all the worlds. The second one that we did with the really wide tip that left for really no ridges, I can tell already it's just going to be really soft. The filling inside is beautiful, but it's not really very crunchy. Without those ridges, it's just kind of soft, if that makes any sense at all. But it's still delicious. All right, so then we had the one that I used the Churro Press for. So it has really, really deep ridges. And what those ridges do is not only give it this great shape, but they give you more surface area for the crunch to hold. So the outside is still really crunchy. I don't know if you can hear that. The outside still has a great crunch. The inside still has that great flavor. Let's try this one. Okay, so far, that's my favorite. I really like those deep crevices that give the overall crunch and hold the shape really, really well. All right, so now I have my hollow churros. So these, the crevices aren't as deep, but it's a finer tip, so there's a lot more of them. And I'm going to, I should have gotten my squeezy bottle out. I'm going to put lemon curd. Usually I would pipe it right into that hole so the whole thing is filled. Oh man. Oh, I haven't made lemon curd in a while. That's one of my all-time favorite foods. It has a great crunch on these. And it's really filled. So that's a good option. But I definitely recommend a good squeegee bottle and squeezing it right down the center. But then again, serving them in cups so the filling doesn't just spill out everywhere. All right, so here is our ice cream sandwiches. I let them cook a little bit long, so I was trying to get that pot cooked. But they're nice and flat, as you can see, and they would be great ice cream sandwich cookies type shape. Here is our bowl. just put a dollop of ice cream right in there. And here is our cone. Now, like I said, I used a thick tip with this first one that I froze, and I can tell already, I'm not sure if it's cooked through all the way. We're going to take it apart and test it. It's just really, it's a lot. It's a lot. So one of the things I liked about the churro cone that I ate in Chicago, one, it had cooled all the way. This is still really warm. But as you ripped off one side, oh yeah, it's still raw in the middle. It just like accordioned out. So, well, come on. As I started to accordion this one, look at that raw batter right there. So yeah, I don't recommend eating this. So I'm going to fry up that one that we just froze that's thinner, and it's the same thinness as these bowls, and I think it's going to cook beautifully. So I don't know why I keep washing my hands. I just keep putting them right back in the cinnamon and sugar. All right, so let's try to take apart one of the bowls, I guess, so we can see if we have that same ripped look that I liked from the cone that I had in Chicago. So as I started to pull the one in Chicago, it just kind of accordioned out. Yeah, and you can tell this one is cooked all the way. If I just rip it through, we can see all those layers. So yeah, I like the idea of the bowl and the cone, but honestly, I don't know if they're really worth the trouble. I would rather just make up a bunch of churros, enjoy them with dipping sauce, and eat a normal ice cream bowl. It's a fun and unique thing to take pictures of, but actually having one, like it's a little bit softer, it's not super crunchy. To get it crunchier, I would end up like burning the outside edges of the churro, and I wouldn't like that. Like, I don't know. Unique, fun, yes. I don't know. I think I'd just rather have churro dipped in salsa. Personal preference. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm not going to let this cool and put ice cream in it and eat it. I totally am. But I prefer that crunch that I get from a classic churro, and the bowls, I'm just not getting that from, if that makes any sense at all. Okay, so I'm going to stay on, answer questions, eat more churros and lemon curd. Oh, so good. Yeah, and then I will be back. I'm not sure if I'm going to go live again this week, because it's my weekend with my kids. Caramel sauce, so good. But I will definitely be live next Tuesday, if nothing else. So, thanks again for joining me. And, yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Hello, Donna. Welcome, welcome. Okay, trying to catch up over here on Facebook. The cone looks delicious. It really does. What are the measurements you're putting in the pan? She must be watching later, because I'm not putting any measurements in a pan right now. I love the recipes. There's so many options of goodies you can put in bowls and cones and so many toppings. There really are. What if I needed to get the whole family there to make their own? Where did I get the churro maker? I just ordered it from Amazon. If you're on YouTube, I have a link in the bottom of the YouTube video. I will add a link. I'm going to make more of the normal churros, take new pictures. My blog post on churros is super old, so I'm going to update it with some new pictures, and I will make sure to add a link to that post. As soon as I turn this off, I will go, Rhonda, I will add a link for you so that you can get it sooner. It really was like, I want to say like, I don't know, $14. Yeah, but I do, and yeah. I wish they had a squeeze one, but those were more expensive. This was just super cheap, and I just wanted to test it and see what I thought. But I like it. I like how deep the ridges go. I actually, last time I made churros, I tried like 10 different piping tips for my home collection of cake decorating tips. I tried closed tips and French tips and star tips, and I just was never really happy with the overall shape. And I really am happy with this. I thought when I first opened it up, I don't know if you can see that, I looked at it, I'm like, that is really sharp. That is really indented. There's no way that that's going to turn into a good churro. And I'm pleasantly surprised at how awesome it turned out. So I will definitely be using that again. So I think that's everything. I think I'm all caught up on all the comments, so I will turn everything off and yeah, eat more churros. Well, thanks for watching. I will see you guys next week. If I can turn everything off and my hands are being so messy, we'll see.